So juggling act with
Oh,
one ball. So how does that work out?
I don't know.
Actually,
Probably a lot like Arizona's counting their votes right now. Dude, have they moved to their toes yet? I mean, they use their fingers, and that's all good, but they can use their toes too, man. And if it's a male, they can use one or three other things.
Ligma. I just saw your name. Oh, that's fucking hilarious.
Dude,
I don't.
get down there and help them out, Roger. Jesus.
I don't under. Well, now the sheriff's department has come in and they've barricaded the place. They got like snipers up on the rooftops.
What the
It's like,
fuck?
dude, I'm telling you, it's so frustrating because the entire state of Florida, what was it like within a couple hours, right?
Yeah,
Like
it was
2 hours or something like that, 2-3 hours. The entire state of Florida was able to count their votes. We've got one county that's 2 million votes. And now the guy just came out and said, well, don't hold me to it, but we think we're going to have the lion's share done by next week.
Absolutely insane. The what you saw after the 2020 debacle, like Ron DeSantis got busy fixing Florida's election system, right? Laws. He got rid of I can't remember her name, the lady, the election commissioner in South Florida in Dade County, because she was up to shenanigans. He got rid of her, but yeah, it's crazy in a state of 21 million people who a sizable portion of it just got flattened by a major hurricane, and Florida managed to get all their votes counted.
Well, they got
as a state, but Arizona can't.
When did they get them? When did they get them counted? Because it was easy to call Florida because those counties outside the Panhandle went red. So it was like, okay, we can call Florida relatively quickly. But like, I wonder how, I wonder how long for the end of the count. I mean, it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been after midnight.
Well, they might still be counting, right? But it's like you said, you get those areas. So to me, it's like, hey, for Arizona, and it's all nuanced, and that's something else we'll talk about, but it's who wins Maricopa County.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's put a push. And I get it if it comes down to the wire. Like the first time DeSantis ran with Gillum, right? It came down to the wire. Like, I get it. I get it. It was split. But this is pretty easy, man. You knock out Maricopa County, that's probably going to tell you one way or another. And if it doesn't, if it's still 50-ish, 40-ish, hey, man, I got it. It takes time to get the onesies and twosies votes in because they do make a difference. Every vote should count. But it's like we've counted every outlying area first, because even the vote as of this is Thursday, 6:00 Arizona time, I think the vote difference total right now is like 14,000 votes between Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs, which is nothing because there's 600,000 votes left out there. And I think today they only turned out like another 20,000 votes. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I don't get it.
The other problem with that too is like, so how many people live, roughly how many people live in Maricopa County?
You've got 2 million voters in Maricopa County.
All right. So let's say there's 2 million registered voters in Maricopa County. You know that, right? You don't, and you know that before election day, right? I mean, it's pretty easy at any point to pull up and say, okay, we have this many voters. Now, this is approximately how long it takes to count one vote, get it recorded and curate and make sure, it's legitimate, blah, blah. Okay. So we need X number, we need, you sit down and basically after that, it's a simple troops to task. Right. I need X number of election poll workers, X number of election workers to do this. It's like Harris County, Texas ran out of paper. And you're like, okay, why are you running out of paper?
It's Houston.
You have, you know how many voters you have on the books. So that's that is the number that, isn't, anticipated to show up. Now, of course, not everybody's going to show up, but I don't understand this. Professionals think, or amateurs think tactics. Professionals think logistics.
They need to just get with the program, obviously, because their system obviously is not going to work. Because you talk troops to task, but if you're talking about counting 2 million votes, I mean, do the math. You have to have a lot of people, and you have to have somebody behind them double checking that vote. So,
sure,
I don't know if they're counting by hand. If they're counting 2 million ballots by hand, it's like, hey, I hate to bag on Roger, where he lives and everything, but I mean, it's 2022.
Oh, I wouldn't. Dude, this pisses me off. And here's the thing. There's two camps. You obviously got the Katie Hobbs camp that's like, hey, democracy takes time and this and that. Here's what I think everybody's missing. And I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. I've got 2 points here I'm going to make first. For all those that, we get a lot of haters. We got one of our episodes banned off YouTube and this and that. And I think we're getting some of that Howard Stern syndrome. People just want to listen to you so they can pick you apart and ban you and report you, whatever. And so they think we're overly conservative on everything. Republicans run a lot of this. They need to be fired. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, whatever. You need to be fired. If you had something like, hey, election day kind of comes the same time every couple of years. You kind of knew this was going to happen. You need to be fired, because the first thing is, initially they reported 20% of the machines weren't tabulating properly. Now it actually looks like it was 30% of the machines weren't tabulating properly. You want to know why they weren't tabulating properly? Because they ran out of printer ink. So the little dots didn't print dark enough. So they were running them through this thing like 20, 30 times. So then Maricopa County gets out here and they said, we figured it out. We solved it, because Carrie Lake she went to court, took them to court. I think it was about a month ago, and said, everything needs to be hand counted. I don't trust the machines. They need to be hand counted. Judge said, you're crazy. Throw them out. Then all of a sudden this happens. It's like, well, maybe she's not so crazy. And then 7 hours later, Maricopa County comes out and says, oh, we fixed the problem. We fixed the problem. But how many people have been turned away at those polls because you couldn't go to another location because they said, oh, you've already voted. You've already been at another location. So she went and she sued, tried to keep the polls open to 10 o'clock. Judge turned it down, which I don't know why why not, right? Leave the polls open at 10 o'clock. We're not done counting. It's not like, hey, the numbers have to be done tomorrow by 5. So no, there's no time. This is clearly going to go on for another week. So how many people did you disenfranchise? That either said, screw it, I'm just not dealing with it. My vote doesn't count. One vote's not going to matter or whatever. But it's like, you had the initial printer problem, and the Maricopa County Election Board was bragging about how they fixed it. They fixed it 7 hours later. It was 7 hours.
I really don't understand this. Earlier this year, we slung an object at an asteroid that was 560 feet wide. Right? We slung something at it that took 10 months, traveling tens of thousands, I forget how many thousands of miles through outer space to slam into it at 14,000 miles an hour. Right? We can do that, but we can't get votes counted in a day.
Well, and this is the other point that I was trying to make is, I don't care if you're the winner or the loser, Democrat, Republican. How does this not sow distrust in the system? Because one of two things happen. Okay. Katie Hobbs is up right now, like I said, 14, 15,000 votes or whatever. All of a sudden, this wave comes in and Carrie Lake wins. You got to be thinking, wow, I waited a week and votes just kind of kept coming in until she won. And then if you're Carrie Lake, you're thinking the same thing. Wow, Maricopa County should go majority red, and all of a sudden, all these votes keep coming in, and Katie Hobbs won. You wonder, the media, they wonder why people don't trust elections. This is why they don't trust elections, because there are no winners here. Everybody's a loser, because no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it'll be like Georgia all over again, right? You wake up in the morning, you're like, what the hell happened? I was like up by 50,000 votes. And then today they figured out there was another like 27,000. So Maricopa County election said, okay, everything's done. We've got everything. And there'll be onesies and twosies because we've got some reservations and stuff like that. So I get that. Okay. I'm not talking about 500 votes, something from a precinct or whatever. So they're tabulating. They're like, oh yeah, this truck shows up with another 27,000 votes. Now, I don't know where these votes are from. Could be Republican, could be Democrat. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But okay, so we are now into Thursday at this time. It was like, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and like 27,000 votes show up. Like, I mean, what did they do, man? Throw them on a burro or a mule from Lake Pleasant and have them haul them downtown? I mean, dude, you wonder why people don't trust elections. That's why they don't trust elections, because there are no winners on this thing. It's absolutely insane.
This is why it's ridiculous, because as you guys have been listening to us for a while, talk about Russian interference and all this stuff. And does Russia want Trump to win? Does Russia want
You don't even need Russian interference.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like, look, Russia's goal is to undermine faith in the system, undermine faith in elections. That sows chaos. It sows discord. It's a good strategy, psyops, whatever you want to call it. And like Roger said, You don't even need them. We're doing fine ourselves, sowing distrust with the system. Now, let's just say, sake of argument, everything's on the up and up, and we can just chalk this up to incompetence. Like Roger said, it undermines faith in the system. This is absolutely unbelievable. It's 2022. We, like Josh said, we slammed an object into an asteroid going 14,000 miles an hour. That's like hitting a bullet with a bullet. I mean, I know asteroids seem big, because you watch too much Star Wars. Roger was humming Star Wars before we started, freaking dork. But but it's like hitting a bullet with a bullet. We could do that, but this leads me to something Josh and I were talking about. I think Roger was involved. Roger's been doing a lot of driving lately. So how do you
Literally.
fix it? It's something that's not easily fixed because, as I understand it, it's kind of up to the states how they run their elections, right? But your average person, I am against the federal government stepping in and saying, okay, we're going to standardize this, and we're going to do that, because I don't like any more power with the federal government. But in this case, it's like, okay, well, we got to do something, right? So, Josh, I mean, other than all the states getting on the same page and saying, okay, we're all going to do it this way, I think we have a better chance at a confederation of states than we do with that. But other than that, I mean, how do you fix this? Like, what's a step that all the states could take, or I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So first off, absolutely, the federal government should not be involved. Period. In any way, shape, or form. I think, and maybe it's a pipe dream that, like you said, that all the states get on board with each other, because Michigan and New York just decided that they wanted to, vote back in feckless tyrants as their governors. Um, I don't know. I don't know what could be done, right now at this moment to correct this. I think Arizona's on the right track. It looks like, hopefully, knock on wood, Abe is going to win the in the attorney general race. And that's really where the states need to start. They need to take a look at Florida. Right, Florida is the model. For states to fix their election process. Like I said, we were saying, I'm not sure if we were already recording it, but after the 2020 election in Florida, and it was a complete disaster. And Ron DeSantis got busy fixing that. He fixed it, and lo and behold, the counties that had the most problems didn't have any problems, in this one, and they were able to get their votes in and counted in a very timely manner. In fact, use Dade County as an example. Dade County was one of the early counties called in Florida. And by far, that's, for those who may not be familiar, that's, a large portion of Miami. So you're talking a lot of folks and, a lot of voters. But I think, overall, what needs to happen with voting, and this needs to be across the states. And again, you have to get the states to agree to this. I would never support federal legislation, for standardized voting ever. States need to come out, and it's one, you have to have an ID. You have to have an ID to vote. Serialized paper ballots. And then you take your little serialized paper ballot, and you go feed it into the machine, and the machine reads it, calculates it, and that's that. I don't,
Dude, that's too easy a fix, and that's the point. I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but that's the problem is they don't want to fix it. Here's the other side to it, and I know what people are going to say out there. So, Katie Hobbs is running against Carrie Lake. Guess who the Secretary of State is? Katie Hobbs. Yeah. Now, they were saying, well, when Brian Kemp, hey, I have no issues with saying they need to recuse themselves. I get it. But your answer right there is so simple. It tells me they don't want to fix it, because if you fix it, you can't cheat. It makes it harder to cheat. I'm telling you, man, that's the only reason why it's just too easy. You can serialize every single US dollar that we have, because there's trillions of them out there now. I can serialize a ballot. Pretty easy.
Exactly. And the other things with that too, I would eliminate mail-in voting. Would be illegal. It would be 100% illegal. you would have absentee voting, but absentee voting would be by exception, and I'm talking about by very, very limited exception. If you want to vote early voting will be open for 1 week, but you have to go do it in person.
What about
You've got a week to
military?
go get your what's that? Absentee
What about
ballot.
okay? So that's
Well,
we'll make the
it's different.
differentiation again. We'll make the differentiation again as we have before. Mail-in is different than absentee.
Right.
There's a
Yes,
chain of custody with absentee.
correct. So,
And
and
it's not
that's
unsolicited. It's not
right.
unsolicited, which is the big key, right?
Exactly. It's not unsolicited. You have to actually mail in and request, like Luke said, your absentee ballot. Like Luke said, there's a chain of custody. A mail in ballot, it just, they look at it and say, okay, well, this is the address we have for this person. That person moved to Florida a year ago, to escape your draconian COVID measures, but you just go ahead and mail that to that address anyway. That's never how it should never work like that, ever. Right.
So
We're just not a serious country right
how
now.
did the Pennsylvania thing go? Okay, I know Fetterman won, got it. But was there any news on how that went? Because it was such a big thing in
It was the
2020.
down ballot. I mean, here's the thing with a lot. You got to remember, this is not a presidential election, and some of this stuff we're going to get into some weeds because there is a point about the media we were talking about a little bit earlier. With a midterm election, you normally struggle to get high voter turnout, right? Because there's just not the national popularity. Some people don't care, and quite frankly, in some states, it really doesn't matter because like Alaska, a Republican's just going to be elected because they do the ranked choice voting or whatever. Just is what it is. So when you look at midterm elections, you have to have a very strong top of the ticket because that's who's going to carry everybody else over. So when you look at Georgia with Kemp and Walker, and I think there was it ended up being like about a 4-point difference, which is about the same lag out here with Kerry Lake and Blake Masters, about a 4-point difference. Kerry Lake is a strong candidate. Whether she wins or not, she's a strong candidate and will help with coattails drag other people across. Lee Zeldin in New York, though he didn't win, they're already saying there are several seats that they attribute to him because he's a high profile guy. He's a strong candidate and he brings that down ballot vote. Nobody's going to go and say, hey, I'm just going to go vote for the Senate and that's it. They vote top down. So what I've seen and the pundits, what they're reporting, which maybe it's right, not right. Obviously, Mastriano had some issues. They drew the narrative about him very, very early on that he was an extreme, right MAGA conservative or whatever you want to call it. And he had some flaws in his own campaign. So when you're a weak top of the ballot candidate, you just don't help anybody else below you. Like Josh was saying, Oz had a struggle. There's several different, issues with Oz. One, he had his own personal issues, but you also look at the primaries. It was a knockdown, drag out primary. Oz wins, and then he disappears for a month. Right? I mean, it almost so anyway. There's a whole bunch of things that led to that, but it's almost no different. I'm glad to see that Herschel's out there campaigning right now because is the minute the runoff was announced, Warnock was like, "We're on the trail." And so the reporter, this is Fox, okay? Fox News reaches out to the Herschel camp. They literally came out, well, not literally, they came out and said, well, we're not sure if he's going to take a knee for a little bit first or not. Like, what? Dude, we'll talk about the fallout and the whys because you maybe tie it to Trump, maybe you don't. I think you're going to see, I've definitely got a differing of opinion, and maybe Luke does. Josh, he jumped off the train a long time ago. But it's like, the candidates have to help themselves as well. And I forget the lady who used to be Trump's senior advisor, but she came around and was like, hey, you can't just say, and it doesn't matter who the endorser is. You can't just say, hey, I endorse you and boom, I'm done. You're not being like knighted, right? You're not a saint all of a sudden. It's like, okay, you have the backing and approval of, the leader of the party or whatever it is. You still have to put in the work. And I think what you've seen in a lot of places, folks just haven't put in the work. Like, I got the Trump name. I'm good.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania, what happened in Pennsylvania? And I've said it multiple times before. I think Roger and I got into some animated conversations about it. Oz was a terrible candidate. Oz was not the guy who should have been the nominee. It's yeah, you can say part of that is due to Mastrana being a terrible candidate, and not pulling him up. But at the end of the day, each candidate should be able to stand on their own. If you are nominating the right people to the ticket, then they should be able to stand on their own. Oz was an absolutely terrible candidate. The majority of people, looking at social media, reading some articles, from some conservatives in Pennsylvania, they came out and said the biggest problem that they had with Oz was his past record of not being conservative, and the fact that a lot of people viewed Oz as nothing more than a carpetbagger from Jersey. Right. That is, a lot of folks looked at Oz like that. Now, does McCormick get that same treatment? I don't know. Right. We'll never know because the GOP decided. Right. And it's not ultimately, it's really, it's a little bit of Oz's fault because he ran a shitty campaign and some of his commercials were absolutely atrocious. I mean, it was like, it was like the 50-year-old dad trying to, hang out in the student section, at a college football game. You're like, dude, come on, man. Like it's over. But at the end of the day, the GOP threw their weight behind Oz because they were like, well, that's our guy. They went, the distinguished gentleman, the name, he's got name recognition. Let's just go with him because he's got instant name recognition. And Oz was a terrible candidate. And couple that with the fact that Pennsylvanians are dumb. Not only did they elect a brain dead guy to the United States Senate, they elected a dead person in Tony DeLuca. The guy died on October 9th. They literally elected him to office. The guy's dead. And so now there has to be a special election, next month to fill that seat after they just elected somebody. They elected that dude and he's dead. It was like, there's a reason why the founders did not want everybody to vote.
You're seeing why we're a republic.
Yes,
that's what
absolutely. This is why you're a republic, because the vast majority of people that go to the polls are uneducated voters. They are uninformed and they are uneducated in who they are voting for and the issues at hand. They go in there and they're like, here's what I hate. So I went, when I went to vote right outside, the little fire station where I vote at, both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, have a tent. Right. And they have their sample ballot already pre-filled out that they can hand you. So you can walk into the booth and just, fill in the bubbles that, that they filled in. And I always walk past and they're like, hey, do you need a ballot? And I said, no, because I educate myself on the candidates and the issues. I really appreciate your sample ballot, but I don't need it. But I can tell you, as a standing there, the 7 people in line behind me, they all had it. They all picked it up. And I was just like, if you don't know the candidate, why are you voting for them? Why do you need somebody else to tell you who to vote for? That's the problem. That is such a huge problem in this country. And I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon.
How many votes did you make? Like what all did you vote for? Would you say it was 6 votes or 15 different offices?
So there was quite a few. I mean, there was probably 12, 15.
Fair enough. And what did we say? We always preach this on this podcast. We're like, get more involved with your civics. Be a good civic American. I'm telling you, dude, on a couple of the offices that I voted on or chose not to vote on because I didn't know who the hell they were. I didn't even know that was a race. And I was like, okay, all right. I need to, there was some kind of like underground water authority for my particular area, for my particular area. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, number one, or who, and number two, who these people are. So I sat there for a second. My wife actually said something out loud in the polling station. She's like, what the hell is this? Like, everybody looked at her, and she was on the same page I was. And I was like, well, who should I vote for? Like the guy with the coolest name? I don't know, because there was no party affiliation.
So we had like 100 different names we had to vote for on ours, because not only did you have all those little crazy things, I don't know what the time is. It's definitely more than 2 years, but you have to go back and recertify every Arizona state judge as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, we literally had like 100 names on there, and we didn't vote straight down ballot because my wife was doing a little bit of research because we split it up, and she's like, hey, the Republican guy running for like the school board. Yeah. He just got caught masturbating last week and got arrested. So we
Wait,
ended
I'm
up,
going to need more details behind that because I'm having a hard time finding the crime in that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
I
we
mean,
ended
like
up,
where? Like in his bedroom? Like
no, it was like around a community
by?
college or something like that. He
Oh, okay,
literally
okay.
got
So in
arrested
public,
in
indecent.
public.
Okay, got
And
it,
so,
got it.
you know what? It's one of those like, hey, you know what? Yeah, in that case, guess what? I'm voting for the Democrat because I can't have a pedophile, being running
Yeah.
the school board.
Yeah, I get, I get that, and Luke, and your point taken. Absolutely. I think the only one that was on my ballot that I was like, I don't know who this person is. It was like the Register of Deeds, right? And it's like, okay, so you work at the courthouse registered deeds. Like, I really don't. Like, at the end of the day, there's very little damage that you can do. So yeah, I'm gonna wing this one,
So
right?
I did. First of all, I was surprised that this is the first time I voted in Texas in a while, and there was no option for straight ballot, straight ticket. Uh, you went line by line, which I like that for the very reasons Josh and Roger were talking about. But I did not vote straight ticket. I told you I didn't vote in a couple of them. I skipped the screen uh, because I don't know what I want to get myself into. I might be voting for the wrong person. I don't know. But I did not vote for the Attorney General Ken Paxton. I voted for the Libertarian on that one because Ken Paxton. Roger's always saying, "You gonna put some money on that game? You gonna put some money on that game?" And whatever whatever website. And I'm like, I can't because in Texas you can't gamble online. And I'm not a big gambler. I put like $1.50 on a game I'm not
Right.
interested in because it makes it interesting, right? And I don't think I've ever bet more than $5 on a game. But yeah, he's that's his whole platform, or not his whole platform. That's his shtick is no online gambling. It's like, bro, you can go to any place and buy lottery tickets, all this stuff. What is your problem with online gambling? And I know it's something probably behind the scenes. They probably want some kickbacks, or the sports books are looking at some kind of tax status that Texas don't want to give them. But I'm like, no, Ken Paxton, no, I'm not. You're not getting my vote. So I did not go straight ticket, but uh, I told you we were on Isaac's live stream the other night, the Cajun Conservative. He's a hoot, man. If you can take the kids screaming in the background, it was a lot of fun. Roger unfortunately couldn't hang too long because of his connection, but my wife calls me. I was actually in Midland earlier in the week, home of the Permian Basin. That stuff you put in your car to make it go zoom zoom, yeah, it probably comes from the Permian Basin. But she calls me like real early, and she goes, "I don't know what I'm gonna do." She was freaking out. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, what was the house on fire? What's going on? You know what to do. She's like, no, Beto O'Rourke is ahead right now. I was like, okay, what percentage of the votes are in? And she goes, 21%. I was like, that's because they've counted Harris County, Dallas County, and Travis County first. And of course, Austin, Houston, Dallas. Of course, they're going to go to Beto. But I was sure. I was like, you don't need to worry. The Beto monster is not under the bed. He's not going to come get you. Beto with the bad teeth is going to lose this election, and he did, which was a good thing. It was completely expected on my part, at least. I did not think it was going to be reasonably close at all, which it really wasn't. I was happy about that. But that's Roger. I want to get into this a little bit. Let's go ahead and talk about Trump. I believe, and maybe I'll follow these thoughts up a little later after your thoughts and Josh's. But this election was a little strange, right? Because Biden's popularity is very low, his approval rating is very low. You would think, the popular logic, based on history, shows they're going to get a shellacking. It's going to be a red wave. It's going to be a red tsunami. I'm starting to think, with respect to Biden, that this was not a referendum on Biden with respect to the Democrats and independents. You know why? Because they've already given up on him. It's like, you know what? Biden is a shell corpse of a person up there as president. We're going to not necessarily give him a pass, but it's not a referendum on him. We're still going to stick by our Democrats or whatever. I believe that the paradigm is shifting, so to speak. I also don't think this was a referendum on Trump. I really believe that people are starting to come out of the Trump hangover I think Trump is a thing of the past. I think everyone's going to move on. I think he's really going to he has exposed himself over the past few days. But I think that over the next year, he's truly going to expose himself, and he is going to implode when he sees that he doesn't have the majority support of the Republican Party. And I heard something really interesting today is that Trump, it was a point, is Trump is not the leader of the Republican Party. He's not. Although so many of our Twitter haters want to call us MAGA, 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 you're MAGA people. It's like, no, he's not our guy. He maybe for Roger, I don't know, I'll get his thoughts, but there is no real leader of the Republican Party right now. There's not. There's no strongman. I mean, you would say DeSantis is. I would say DeSantis is waiting in the wings to take that mantle, Josh. But right now he's pretending to focus only on Florida, right? And being a good, governor there. But he's going to have to start spreading his wings to become that leader. But it's going to be tough to do that while he's the governor of Florida, once he declares. So I'm kind of all over the place here, Roger. I think my bottom line is, I think we're in a transition period where you can throw you can throw 70% of the playbook, 70% of the history of how things are supposed to happen. You can throw that out because Trump, like it or not, in 2016, he changed everything forever. And that's what we're seeing. That's why Biden is president. That's why Fetterman got elected, which you guys talked about Fetterman, but that to me is unbelievable. So Roger, let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about what this means for him and red trickle. I called her red Merkel. Merkel's when you get a little pee in your pants after you pee at the urinal. That's a Merkel. I said that this was not a red tsunami. This was a red Merkel. So let's hear your thoughts.
So one, it's not over yet. There's obviously a lot of House seats that are still up. They're going to take the majority. If Blake Masters, and depending if Maricopa County ever gets done counting their votes, it's tougher for him than it is for Kerry Lake. Still a good shot, though, or a decent shot, I would say, until we get the next big drop that Republicans take 51 seats in the Senate. The Trump thing is interesting because everybody knows I'm a Trump guy. However, though you cannot blame everything on him, he is a very polarizing individual. And what I take is this, going back to our previous conversations, that you have to be electable as well. And you have to, at the end of the day, you have to be a net positive for your party and your base. Okay. What the midterms told me was that people are just as fired up to vote against him and his candidates as they are to vote for him. So I'm not sure you end up, because Jesse Waters said it best. He's like, hey man, he fires up the base. I mean, you go see his rallies. I don't care who you are. I mean, there are thousands of people out there. He comes to Mesa quite a bit, and he goes to the airport right down the street. They literally have to shut down the town. I mean, it is insane. But like Jesse Waters said, Democrats will walk barefoot on hot coals to go vote against him. Two aspects of this, and I'll kick it to Josh. So at first I was like, well, you know what? This may actually work out, because what it does is it should clear the field. If I'm Trump, you say, you know what? Because there are still parts of the country that he is extremely popular and has a lot of influence. And those are the areas that you need to play in. Like him, love him, hate him, or whatever. That's what Biden did, right? He knew there were places that he can't go. So he says, I don't go there. And the places that he was going to be able to benefit the candidate, your New Yorks, and that's where he's going. And so I think Trump has to play that. And ideally, in a perfect world, Trump sits back and he looks and he says, okay, well, and plus he's getting older, and I still don't think he's going to run. Even though everybody says he's going to run, I still don't think he's going to run. But he says, hey, I'm going to sit back and influence what I can. And then you endorse him like DeSantis to go on, much younger guy. The time's right for him, this and that. The other side to this, and this is actually what pisses me off. We brought this up a couple episodes ago, but we didn't really dive into it too much. McConnell's getting exactly what he wants. Make no mistake about it. Okay. The GOP establishment did not want Trump candidates to win, period. Fact is, $9 million. McConnell sent $9 million to the Murkowski campaign up in Alaska. So you'd say, okay, that must be a close race. And maybe I didn't even check to see who won or whatever. Maybe it was a close race. She's running against another Republican. Why would you spend $9 million to back a Republican candidate that's running against another Republican when you're guaranteed to keep that seat because the other Republican was endorsed by Trump and was a Trump candidate? And when you look across the board on the funding that Blake Masters didn't get, when you look at J.D. Vance, when Peter Thiel ended up coming in to back his money in, now don't get me wrong, McConnell threw some money around. Now, there was a large, some sums that were sent around there, but this is exactly what they wanted. Because from the very beginning, McConnell and the GOP establishment was like, hey, we're going to take the House. Whether it's 218 or 224 or 250, nobody cares. 218 is all you need. The rest of the fighting will go for the Speaker of the House, and it doesn't matter. Biden automatically becomes a lame duck president. You don't really need the Senate. The Senate's there for the judges anyway. And so McConnell's like, hey, man, this will kill the Trumpism, the MAGA movement or whatever, and then we just shoot for 2024. And that's essentially what he's going to get, depending on how things turn out. Again, Blake Masters theoretically can still pull it out in Arizona. And if Laxalt wins Nevada, it's 51. Okay, so you have some control, and then you have a large, and then who knows what happens with Herschel Walker. You could have a significant presence in the Senate and in the House. But that was the goal all along. Where I've changed is going back to you have to be a net positive. I'm not sure Trump can bring that anymore. Not after what I saw, not after what I've seen with the midterms. Still love his policies, still love the dude as a president. I can't say I was late to this train or late to this conclusion because I think it took the midterms to define that. But clearly that is not going to work because we said in the last episode, this is one of the things I threw out to Josh. If Trump ran the table, it would have been a different story, right? If all of his candidates would have won by 5, 6, 7, 8 points, then you say, you know what? He doesn't have to be appealing to the masses because all you've got to do is win Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and you're done. You've locked it up. What DeSantis has done is and everybody's overlooked this. Okay. Everybody's looked at this red wave, trickle, whatever the heck you want to call it. It's a red wave. And I'm going to tell you why. And I don't care how the Senate turns out. Florida is a red state. People are missing it. The biggest thing to come out of this, outside of the GOP taking control of the House and making Biden a lame duck president for the next 2 years, Florida is a red state. Florida's been purple since what? The last 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at how much
ever since
Miami-Dade
right.
going red. That's a great point because Miami-Dade going red is like Travis County, Austin going red. That's a big deal.
Now, you can't sleep on it. I mean, you still have to put in the effort, right? You still, because that's what the Democrats failed to do down in Miami-Dade. We're good. We're going to flip this thing. We're going to flip this thing. And DeSantis has done a great job down there. And I think he got helped a lot by the hurricane that we brought up. Timing was there. Maybe it was the good Lord saying, hey, I'm giving you a little nudge here. But he made the right decisions. He made the right calls. He turned a state that's been purple that even the GOP, even conservatives like us were wondering, like, man, Florida might actually go blue this term. I mean, you just didn't know, right? It's a toss-up. Barring something significant happening in 2024, it's a red state. That's the wave. That is what you are looking for. And I think that is more significant than what the media, I take it back. You're even hearing some folks on CNN. They're like, yeah, Florida's done. They're like, it'll be another 2 decades before they even get another foothold into that area. But like Josh says, the GOP is famous for screwing things up, and in typical fashion, they'll sleep on it and they'll let that creep back in, and all of a sudden it'll be a surprise. But I'll throw it over to Josh. But that's my thing. I think Trump's the time has passed. I think that is evident by the midterms, and it's not because I don't like his policies or don't like him, but you have to be a net positive. And right now, I think what we've seen in the midterms is more Democrats will walk barefoot over hot coals to vote against him than people will vote for him.
Yeah, you're spot on, and the GOP comment is spot on too. I always go back to Barack's comment
Dude,
about
F
Joe.
those dudes. F those dudes.
I always go back to Barack's comment about Joe's. Never underestimate Joe's ability to f things up. That's kind of how I view the GOP establishment. It's like never underestimate their ability to screw things up. So on the Florida thing, yeah. So my home state got it done. But I think there's a couple of things in there too, and it wasn't just. It was DeSantis because it was his policies during COVID, and I want to get I'm gonna go on a little bit of a diatribe here, but I want to get Luke's take on this first. Is flipping Miami-Dade red and flipping some other, historically blue counties red. I think that was helped over the last 24 months of the people who fled California, New York, who fled blue states going to Florida because of DeSantis's, you know, pro, you know, pro liberty policies. But I think, right, I don't have any empirical data to back that up. And I also think that same thing may have hurt Zeldin in New York, because Zeldin didn't lose that election by much, right, against Hochul. And so, did conservatives leaving New York and leaving some of these blue states, did it hurt, some of those GOP candidates in those states? And I want to get Luke's take on that when I get done with a couple of points on this. So, to jump in on Trump, as Roger said, I got off the Trump train a long time ago because his time has passed. 2016, he was the right person. I've never been a never Trumper. I voted for Cruz, in the primary. And after that, it was like once Trump, became the nominee, because I didn't think Trump was going to be the nominee. Once Trump became was the nominee, I was all aboard. I was 100% Trump. At that point, he saved us from probably 8 years of Hillary Clinton. He got in and he was the ultimate disruptor, right? I mean, he got in and it was a no holds barred, and it didn't matter who they were, GOP, Democrat. He just took a flamethrower to everything. And it was good. It was very good, because that's exactly what we needed. We needed somebody to turn the monopoly board over and set it on fire. And we needed it done in 2016, and that's what Trump did. I think people need to move on from Trump, because at this point, Trump is really he's damaged goods. We talk about Trump back candidates, and a lot of people who are very pro Trump want to throw up his record. It was like 176-9 or whatever, right, for Trump back candidates winning, and those 9 losing. But they never provided any context. So I had somebody throw that up to me, and I was like, okay, out of those 170 something candidates that won, how many of them would have won anyway without Trump's backing? Right? Take a look at that race. It's like, oh, the House member, in this district, and pick a red state, in Texas, in rural Texas, right? It's like that guy was going to win anyway. He didn't need Trump's backing. But when you really dig into it, you take a look at Georgia, right? Kemp, remember Kemp from 2020? Trump he went full throttle on Kemp when Kemp refused to overturn the election results in Georgia. Right? He eviscerated Kemp publicly. Kemp easily defeated Stacey Abrams. Easily. Now, granted, Stacey Abrams, terrible candidate, right? But Kemp's popularity did not pull Walker across a finish line when it should have. Walker was obviously, he attached his cart to the Trump horse really, really quick. And now Walker's in a runoff. You take a look at, in New Hampshire, Don Bolduc. Don Bolduc was a Trump guy, did not win, but the governor, Chris Sununu, who came out and he said, at one point, I think it was last year before, he called Trump effing crazy. He won. So I think at this point, Trump's endorsement, unless you're in a very, very red, district, county, state, Trump's endorsement doesn't help you. And in fact, it hurts you. And that's kind of in the same vein of what Roger said about, Democrats will walk across, burning coals and broken glass to vote against Trump. And a lot of conservatives aren't going to go to the polls to do it. So I think with the Trump thing, he simply needs to go away at this point, right? DeSantis, historic. Nobody has pulled that. He won Florida by, dude, that was like 20 points. That's how much he won. He pulled out even Charlie Crist, in his home county went red, right? No GOP candidate has pulled that many conservative votes out of Florida ever in history. And what does Trump do the very next day? Well, I won a county, more, by X number of points more than DeSantis did. I got more votes out of there than DeSantis did. And it's like, what are you doing? Why would you why do you feel the need to come out and even mention that? Now I'll say this, and I'm going to kick it over to to Luke for his opinion on the movers through the U.S. during the the last 2 years, and if they impacted elections in some of these races. But it's not all Trump's fault, right? The red wave, the red Merkel, I love that. Ben Shapiro called it the red wedding more than the red wave, which I thought was very very good. It's the GOP's fault, and it's that machine that Roger talked about, the Mitch McConnell and the machine. It's the GOP's fault because they put up crappy candidates. They put up terrible candidates. You cannot put up terrible candidates and just say, well, Biden really sucks, so people are going to vote for anybody. Well, no. In fact, they won't. And so the Democrats have the Democrats have some issues too. This wasn't they were going around and praising the fact that there wasn't a red wave and saying this, that, and the other. It's like, well, you guys didn't perform so well either, because Hispanics turned up in record numbers
just
for
Cubans.
the GOP.
Just Cubans,
dude.
Nobody else. Just Cubans, according to Joy Reid, right? Or maybe whatever.
Yeah. What an idiot.
I've got some numbers on that.
Yeah. Hispanics turned out for the GOP, and the Democrats are realizing now, it's like, oh man, we just can't automatically count them as our voter base. And we've said it on this podcast, numerous times.
It's amazing what happens when you don't call them tacos, right?
Right. Or Latinx, whatever the hell that is. But so, the Democrats have a problem. They don't have a viable. Well, Joe Biden has to be the nominee now for 2024. They don't have a choice. If Joe Biden's alive, he's running for 2024. They don't have a choice, and because there's nobody else, and since they they got some folks back into office, which is just insane. I'm going to say this one last thing. I know I already said that, but I'm going to do it again. This was probably one of the most bizarre elections outside of 2020 that I've ever seen. Because you guys remember, there was a CNN poll or something. It was almost 40% said they were dissatisfied with the way the country was going. It was the wrong direction. You had a lot of folks, on both sides saying, the economy's bad, wrong direction, blah, blah. It's like, this should have been an absolute bloodbath, right? You guys know, not one senator and not one Democratic senator or governor lost their seat. Not one. But yet the economy, is in shambles.
Well, you don't know that yet.
And we're on the wrong track. Dude, it's no incumbent governor has lost, and no incumbent senator is going to lose.
Nevada? Laxalt's not going to win Nevada?
We don't know yet.
Yeah,
probably.
I don't know. The longer it takes, here's an adage for you. The longer it takes to count the vote, the less you should trust the outcome. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, I think who said it? Somebody said, if this were Guinea-Bissau, where this was going on in Maricopa County, Nevada, I guarantee the State Department would be complaining. And that is absolutely 100% true, having worked with those jackasses before. But they'd be right in this case. So, first of all, before I address Josh's thing about did state migration help or hurt particular candidates, I'll say that, we can talk about, Mitch McConnell sending $9 million to Murkowski to beat Chewbacca and them handling it wrong and Trump and all this and that. But one thing I try, the way I try to read the tea leaves on stuff like this is not necessarily money. Although that does make a big difference. It's not necessarily, you know, although Trump, the feelings for or against Trump do play a huge role. I try to read the tea leaves based on what I perceive as the general public's feeling about things right now. And going back to what I said earlier, I believe we're in a transition time where people are just trying to gather their wits a little bit, because we had Trump in 2016 that shocked the system. And as on a side note, I'll echo what Josh and Roger said. I think that Trump was the right person at the right time. Absolutely 100%. I'm glad he was president from 2016 to 2020. I'm never going to crap on him and say he was an absolutely awful president. I think he was a good president. I think he did a good job. We go back and forth on the people he put in around him, especially early on. But again, right place, right time. I'm not crapping on him by saying I'm not going to vote for him. Again, I'm glad I voted for him last 2 times. But his time is over. So the general attitude and feeling of the people, you had Trump shocking the system. You had COVID, which was a big shock to the system. It wasn't a shock to us because we saw it all coming and everybody listening saw and understood what was going on. But we're still kind of in a daze a little bit. And yes, this was a very odd election because there are a lot of factors at play right now. I do say, and all 3 of us have said, this is really going to come to a head in 2024. And then we're going to see what's what. I'm predicting 2024 won't be anything like this. I think it will be DeSantis, probably maybe Biden. I think that would be a huge mistake. But I think people are going to kind of get their feet under him and understand, Biden's going to expose himself even more over the next 2 years. I don't know if he'll run again or not. I think I agree with Josh. Roger, go ahead.
So what happens in the primary? Let's say Trump says he's going to run. In your mind, how does that play out with DeSantis, assuming DeSantis wants to run?
I think that because I could be 120% wrong on this, but I'm basing this on what I've seen over the past month. I think Trump is going to become unhinged, and I think he's going to expose himself. And that's why I think maybe he won't run. Maybe he won't. Because you got to remember, man, with Trump, it's all about branding and money, right? And if he's not an idiot. But his ego gets in the way so much. I would like to give him credit enough to think that he's looking at, Twitter and all this. Oh, he's not looking at Twitter anymore. Maybe he's got a fake account out there somewhere. He's looking at it, but
he does.
Yeah, he's got to. But he's got to be seeing that DeSantis's wave is rising. And to kind of go back to your question, what happens if he runs? I think he's going to get shellacked. I think people are going to start turning their backs on him. I really believe that. Roger, you sent something a second ago. Did you read through the whole thing? Do you want to kind of comment on that before I go on?
Yeah. So basically, there's already been some shots over the bow, and he put out on Truth Social, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can go on there and look at it, but he's basically everybody's backing Governor Ron DeSanctimonious, an average Republican governor with great public relations who didn't have to close up his state, but did, and like other Republican governors, yada, yada, yada. And then he kind of goes into a little bit of history talking about his run against Andrew Gillum. And then back in 2017, when he was desperate, politically dead, losing in a landslide, back when he was running against Adam Putnam, basically how Trump, yes, I'm going to endorse you and I'm going to bring you along. Right. So he puts out 3 posts on that, and I'll kick it back to you or Josh or whoever. Because he has alluded to, I have some dirt on you, which you can't necessarily take at face value because he said that before at the White House, things on tape or whatever. So it makes me wonder, it's like, well, one, does he truly have dirt on him? What's the point of throwing this out unless you don't have something else there? And we're saying all this, there's still a long ways to go. I mean, he may announce on November 15th, which I think he's dumb if he does that. I think you wait for the runoff in Georgia before you make any type of announcement. But there's a lot that can happen in the next year with Trump and DeSantis. I mean, you just never know, right? I mean, the political season, a lot can turn on a dime. But long story short, he basically fired another round that's pretty aggressive. And initially when Josh kicked out something that he said last week, I was like, it depends on context. Here, everybody knows the context, right?
So right now, the way I see it, and I think that the way a lot of people see it kind of in the backs of their minds, you can talk about January 6th and stop the steal and all this stuff. The bottom line, cheating or not, no matter what happened in the 2020 election, Trump lost. He lost. And I happen to know a little bit behind the scenes, he did not have lawyers in the right place that night. And leading, he had to scramble to send lawyers to Georgia. He should have. That's where Carrie Lake is on point. She learned from Trump. He's like, I have all my lawyers in place. I'm ready to go. Trump effed that up, man. He just did. I don't care. He didn't have hardly anyone in Pennsylvania.
Trump and the RNC, because they weren't helping him. They weren't helping him.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, yeah, and you know why he didn't have lawyers in the right places, Luke? Because his ego told him, everybody loves me. There's no way I can lose. There's no way, because I am effing Donald J. Trump. That's why he didn't have lawyers in the right places.
I agree with you there. And back to my original thing is that he lost. Okay? Jesus. Here we go, Roger.
I'm just messing with you.
So he lost. In the backs of everyone's mind, he's a loser. Right now, he's a loser. He is. He lost the last election. The dude couldn't even get reelected. Okay? And right now, DeSantis is a rising star. He's a winner. So Trump is, I think he's acting like a child. He's really acting like a child. And this stuff is going to come to the forefront. It really, really is. I mean, I know Trump has an excitable base. I understand that. But I'd say half those people in that crowd, I mean, they're not exactly like us, but they're discerning. They can see these things. This is a childish little swipe at DeSantis because he's ahead of you right now, bro. I guarantee you do a poll right now of all Republicans. Who do you want, to run, Trump or DeSantis? DeSantis is going to win that poll. Probably 66-33. As things stand today. And Kurt Schlichter, and I saw that Josh just liked the post, actually. I think it was Josh. No, it was Damon. Shout out to Damon. Damon is a loyal follower of our Twitter, and we appreciate you, Damon. Thank you. I wish more people out there were like Damon. We're hoping to get Grant on that Twitter train too, man. We appreciate it, Damon, for real, man. Thank you. But Kurt Schlichter put something out. Somebody tweeted. He said, Trump is Trump, a proven winner and fighter. I live in Florida. I like DeSantis, but he's no Trump. At least not yet. Love all the crybabies and turncoats. Weak people. So Schlichter came back and said, to be a turncoat assumes you owe loyalty. We owe nothing to any politician. They owe us loyalty. We should drop them the second they fail to perform. Your premise is flawed. I 100% agree with that. And I don't think Trump sees it that way. I think, to be fair to Trump, I don't think most politicians see it that way. It's like, man, dude, they owe us. And it's like, I love DeSantis' acceptance speech because I couldn't see that coming from Trump. DeSantis thanked everyone, did not reference himself once. He thanked his staff. He thanked the voters. He's like, in his acceptance speech, he was like, and I know people didn't, I'm not quoting him verbatim, but I know not everybody voted for me, but I'm going to continue to govern this state for everyone. And it's like, man, dude, okay, I can get on that. Good stuff. So,
which is uncommon because he's a SEAL. I mean, normally he would just write a bucket.
No, he wasn't a SEAL.
He's not a
SEAL. He was
an
aviator, wasn't he?
He was a JAG officer.
Oh, a JAG.
Well, he went to Buds or whatever.
I love saying that word, JAG officer.
I can't. I have no idea why.
So to Josh's question, I'll kick it to Roger again. Did state migration help or hurt certain candidates? I don't know, man. It's hard to tell Because you remember, you're always hassling me about all the Californians moving to Texas going to turn it blue, and I see that a little bit. I mean, in my little community I live in here, about 1,100 people, we got a few people from California who've moved in, and a few of them have kept their politics. It's an interesting question, right? Are the conservatives moving out of California, New York, all these states, or is the liberal who realizes their house is worth, their crap ass house that would be worth $130,000 in Texas is worth 750,000, and they can buy a mansion in Texas for that? Are they selling their house and moving and keeping their politics when they come back? I don't know. You kind of have to see the numbers on that. I definitely think it made an impact, like you said, up in New York with the Hochul race. I definitely think that made an impact. I mean, you take 40,000 people. I mean, the numbers moving out in New York to Florida are staggering. I don't know if it's 40,000. It's probably a lot though over the past 2 years, which is interesting because I saw that the stock for U-Haul today took a big hit. What's up with that?
I don't know, but massive hit, dude. It went from like what 300 something to $56.
That's crazy.
Like it's dude, insane.
It was overvalued. Probably sneak back up. So, yeah, because of you guys' little interruptions there, I was all over the place. I'm going to blame y'all, just like Roger blames McConnell for everything. But again, I want to reiterate. I think the state of the nation and the mood is a little bit confused. People are falling back on what they're comfortable with, which is voting for who they usually vote for. I think independents were a little confused on this one. And of course, after that night, as I'm watching all this come in, I don't know how you guys felt, and Josh and I were kind of on the horn with Isaac at the time. But the way I felt was like, I didn't feel like I was wrong in thinking there was going to be a red tsunami, but I thought, oh, well, of course it went this way. Because why? What else way would it go? I don't know. It felt kind of strange.
I think a lot of I think there was definitely something, and I know that there are some folks that are diving into the data as far as people relocating liberals and conservatives. I think a large part is there's no one thing, right? It wasn't just Trump. It wasn't just, part of the country liberal. There's a whole bunch. Another large piece of this is Republican messaging. It was just horrible. So, because here's the thing, like, let's take abortion for an example. Now, abortion generally was not one of the top 3, primary concerns for most voters. Couple spots in the country it was, but most places it wasn't. And I heard this on the drive back home the other day that the GOP collectively made a decision to not come out with abortion messaging. And I don't understand that. So you sit there and you let basically one side play their argument and you don't rebut it. Because you said 41,885 New Yorkers moved to Florida so far. And so it's significant. And we've seen it in the census, right? I mean, I think they actually gained 2 seats in the House, if I'm not mistaken. But, going back to the abortion thing, that's not even a question for a senator. Because if I was a Senate candidate and you asked me, hey, what do you think about abortion? This, that, I think the Supreme Court ruling was right. And I think it goes back to the states. And as a citizen of the state of Kansas, Nebraska, New York, whatever, you will vote whatever decision that you want.
100%,
that's the answer.
100% right.
Yep, the GOP made a collective decision not to come out with abortion messaging. So when you look at those places like Michigan, when you look at those places, because when you look across the board, especially New York and even a lot, except Michigan did go all blue for the first time, but a lot of these races were close, super, super, super close. That shouldn't have been close. A lot of them went blue anyway, but I blame it on messaging. Here's the other piece of this, and I'll get Josh's opinions on this. So you look at messaging, and there's a couple issues here we can conflate. Purposely using that word. Mail-in balloting is here. Early voting is here. Okay. The GOP needs to embrace this, and you need to take advantage of it, because here is a prime example, and then I'll kick it over to Josh. So in Pennsylvania, you can early vote for 5 weeks. Okay. So here's what happens. Josh is a lazy turd. He eats Cheetos and he drinks Mountain Dew and he plays Xbox all day and he doesn't have a job.
I can hear
It's
you.
PlayStation. It's PlayStation, not Xbox.
So normally Josh would not want to vote. He couldn't care less because of whatever. Okay. I've got 5 weeks to hound Josh to finally, that like that one day when you wake up and you're like, that's it, man. My jeans don't fit right. My gut's hanging over the belt. I'm running today. I'm eating right today. Right now, that diet and that workout plan doesn't last more than like 14 hours. But within that 14 hours, I get Josh, like I can still hear you. In that 14 hours, I get Josh to the polling station. I've got 5 weeks to motivate him to go down with me to the polling station to vote once. And then maybe he goes back to eating Cheetos and Mountain Dew or whatever. But that's the point. You have 5 weeks of early voting and 5 weeks of these folks. When I went to go visit my daughter in Georgia, we got a knock on the door and I opened up and you know what it was? It was a 23-year-old, 24-year-old young black lady wearing a Stacey Abrams shirt trying to convince me to vote for Stacey Abrams. Nice lady. I was like, sorry, you came to the wrong place, whatever. But they're doing that for 5 straight weeks because by God, I'm sure she had a ballot ready for me to sign and fill out to take it to the ballot box. And Republicans say, you know what? No, we don't believe it. This is another Trump failure, right? Another flaw back in the 2020 election. No, we're going to put everything on election day. Everything rides on election day. And then you get what happens in Nevada where you get a snowstorm that comes in the northern part of Reno where a lot of folks just can't make it out there, or you get power outages, or you get the tabulation machines. And it's like, hey, guys, gals, we don't have to go into election day being down by 300,000 votes. We can close that gap because those Cheeto eaters and Mountain Dew drinkers, Republicans, you can go after them as well. Fetterman had how many hundreds of thousands of votes before election day?
53% of Fetterman's votes were mail-in ballots, early voting.
Yeah. And so you've had those folks next door that you had 5 weeks to go beat them up on because today is the day that I'm going to start the diet. Today is the day that I'm going to work out. And that's the day they go vote, they cast their ballot, and they're done. The GOP won't, they're not playing that game. They said, nope, don't trust the system. Don't trust the process. Okay, I don't trust it as well, but that is what we have right now, and you have to use it. And it's time for the GOP to embrace this because if not, and Josh has said this a million times over, the farther we continue down this road of early voting, mail-in ballots, this and that, and the GOP doesn't embrace it, it's a matter of time before you start losing every race. And so when I look at the overall turnout on the issues, because it's mind-boggling to me when you look at what's going on with the economy and gas and groceries and this and that, it all comes down to piss poor messaging. And so I guess what I want to ask Josh is this. So do you think, is there something different than what the Democrats are doing now that the Republicans need to do to embrace that early voting, to embrace that, hey, get out the vote, rock the vote, you hear it for a month? I mean, what else does the GOP have to do? Or do they just play the same game that the Democrats are doing?
No. So the GOP, first off, needs to synchronize their messaging because, again, who's the leader of the GOP? Is it Mitch McConnell? Right? Is he the leader of the GOP? Or is Trump the leader of the GOP? Like, who's the leader? If you cannot immediately identify this is the leader of my party, right? You have a problem because whose messaging are you listening to? There is no messaging. The GOP is right now, it's a rudderless ship. There's been, once 2020, once that election was over, you really didn't hear a whole lot out of the GOP by and large, as far as like, okay, this is our platform, this is our messaging, this is what we're going to do. Hey, all you GOPers, running in state elections, and I'm not talking about, senators and House of Representatives. I'm talking about down to the local level, mayors, county commissioners. Like, I'm down to the lowest level. This is the party. This is the platform. Here's your talking points. This is our strategic communication plan, and this is what we're doing. You don't have that. Nobody is doing that. And I think that was one of the things that, really helped Ron DeSantis in Florida, because Ron DeSantis, he came out and he said, okay, this is what we're doing. And and everybody knows he only beat Andrew Gillum by like 30,000 votes. It was close. It was very close. Right. And, in that time, he's come out and he has been, very steadfast. His communication team, and we talk about him all the time. Christina Pushaw, now his campaign spokesperson, Jeremy Redfern, one of his other spokesmen, and I forget who the deputy is. But they are fantastic on social media. Absolutely fantastic. Right. Strategic communicators. They don't sit there and a lot of these accounts, everybody's verified now, hell, but before, a lot of the verified accounts would, they take shots at Ron DeSantis, Charlie Crist, and the agriculture commissioner. I've already
Friedman.
forget
Nikki
Friedman. Yeah, Nikki
Did
Friedman.
she lose?
She lost to Charlie. Well, yeah, she lost to Charlie Crist, and so she resigned her. She left her position.
Yeah,
to run, right? So yeah, right now this is the first time in the history of Florida all the state appointed, all the state elected positions are GOP. The first time in history. Well, since Reconstruction. So like Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried did not put out one tweet that DeSantis's combo team, his PAOs, basically did not respond to, and with facts. Right? They responded to it with facts. DeSantis got out. DeSantis is like, okay, here's my platform. Here's what you're running on. This is, family first, parents. Your kids belong to you. Kids don't belong to the state. They don't belong to the teachers. You make the decisions for your kids, right? Not teachers. He went up against Disney, took their Reedy Creek district away from him. DeSantis you knew where he stood on the issues, and he continuously put his message out there, right? What did Lindsey Graham do in September? Came out and was like, federal ban on, 15-week ban on abortion. And you're like, what are you doing? What do you got Roe v. Wade overturned, something that people never thought would happen. And why did you come out and beginning of September, coming up on the midterms, and say we're going to push for 15-week federal ban on abortion?
And the movement was dying on the left at that point.
The movement, yes,
it was already.
All they did was energize. If you go back and you look at the numbers, single women broke for Democrats at the poll by 31 points. Single women. Right? The numbers were dying by that time on on the left about the abortion thing. They were dying. All you did was re-energize them. Young voters, Generation Z showed up at the polls. Why? Because the Democrats were very good and very smart to get them engaged. They were out, like you said, they were out knocking on doors. And I asked this question earlier in our text. How many of the GOP, how many of them going to Georgia right now? How many of them are beating the streets in Grady County, rural county down south? How many of them beating on the streets, knocking on doors, saying, hey, December 6th, you got to get out and vote for Herschel Walker? I'm going to go ahead and say none. This GOP sucks. The GOP has to, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Ted Cruz is out there right now. Ted Cruz is out there. I do believe, I know I'm jumping in here. I do believe, because they're not sure what's going to happen with Nevada and Arizona, Ted Cruz is out there. Kemp has already said he's going to back him. The good thing is there is no early voting. It all happens on one day, I believe. Yep. Is that correct?
So I think so.
That could play in his favor. But if the GOP is smart, going on to what you're saying, every swinging Dick, Tom, and Harry and Lisa out there that holds some type of influence or leadership for the GOP should be in Georgia. Every day you should have a high-profile name out there on the streets, giving a speech, holding a rally, doing whatever you got to do.
Yep. No. And so I'll say this real quick and then give it to Luke. Mail-in voting, you're absolutely right. Mail-in voting, I think it should be illegal, but it's not. Mail-in voting is here to stay. It's never going to go away. COVID went ahead and codified it. The GOP needs to get on board with that. The early voting, I don't like early voting because I wonder, and it'll come out in time, I wonder how many people in Pennsylvania watched that Fetterman-Oz debate and was like, man, I want to take back. I really want to take back on my vote because we just, we just sent a brain damaged Uncle Fester, to Congress. But the GOP has to embrace it. But first, the GOP needs to get their communication straight before they do anything else.
Are you GOP?
I'm a conservative. I'm not GOP.
Okay, so we talked about this earlier today, and I've got a really busy schedule, as we all three do, right up until what is it, December 6th is when the election is.
Yeah. I think it's December 6th or December 8th one.
Like I'm booked, bro. I'm completely booked. I think the only week I have off is Thanksgiving week. I'm doing something next week. I'm doing something the week after Thanksgiving, and the week after that, and that takes you right up to December 6th. So Josh kind of triggered me a little bit today. In the text group, he's like, GOP needs to get out there, be on every street corner. It's like, well, do you believe in it? And I turn it back on myself. I'm like, do I believe in it? I have some friends in Georgia that are going to be there campaigning. I was like, maybe I should put my money where my mouth is and get on the street corner instead of putting it on McConnell and Cruz and all these people. Maybe I need to be there. Josh was thinking the same thing after we talked about it, but unfortunately we're working stiffs. Don't know if I'll be able to make it, but it's not all just on the big time, donors that have the money. And Cruz has been on the Herschel train for quite some time. He's on Tucker like for the past 4 weeks talking about Herschel Walker. I don't know if Herschel Walker has pictures of Cruz playing poker with Satan or something, but I don't know. There's something going on there. But it's like, at some point, I'm not going to say Josh needs to, but I need to put my money where my mouth is with stuff like this. If I really believe in the cause, which in this case, to be honest with you, I don't know if I do. I'm kind of like, you know what? Like I said earlier, let's let the dust settle and see where we stand in 2024. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to get way, way more involved than I ever have been in, leading
but
up
there's
to
a difference.
2024.
There's a difference because you don't have, not to say we shouldn't be involved. I get it. We should. And I was talking to my boy about this earlier and talking to my wife. You should be as involved as possible, but you don't have the same clout as a Ron DeSantis or a Ted Cruz.
I get
and
it.
when you go back to what Josh was saying with this top down, because this is my other thing I was going to say, and I'll kick it back to you. Every one of the people that was leading, like you had the DCCC, right? The person who was responsible, who lost, the person who was responsible for getting all the House folks reelected.
Chef
Boyardee. Yeah, the same thing that Josh doesn't like my text to speech or speech to text or whatever. All you RNC leaders that were responsible for this should be fired. That's the reality of it. And I'm not saying fired from their positions as, congressmen and whatever. But if you are the leadership of the RNC, because you know what? We ran out of money, right? We ran out of money on the right. Do you know what happened in September? You know where Rick Scott was, the guy who controls the Senate funding? He went to Italy because I'm going to take a 3-week vacation right before the midterms, knowing that we're broke. That's what I'm talking about. I get what you're saying, and I agree with it. But the RNC leadership themselves are not as involved and engaged as what they need to be, and they should all be fired. That's how you fix that.
Roger is the world heavyweight champion of interrupting me during this podcast. I'll give him that. Nice, Rocky. Yes, soundbar, baby. Yeah. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, of course I don't have the clout, I don't have the money or anything like that. But I guarantee you this. If I did go, I'd coordinate with some people who are there under some big time money. They're part of a PAC that is bringing in people like the three of us to go knock on doors or, go to certain events, make certain speeches. I guarantee the three of us could convince somebody to show up that day. I promise you that. At least one person. So again, I get it. It's the big money and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's grassroots. It's grassroots, man. And we're grassroots. We can't keep putting it off on other people. Georgia's a long way from me. It's actually a long way from Josh, too. What, 6 hours, Josh? It's not close.
It's like 5.5, 6 hours.
Yeah, but again, all I'm saying is we've got to find a way to get more involved. The power truly is with the people. It should be with the people. But instead, we're talking about Ted Cruz and these multi-million-dollar PACs. It's just, It's freaking ridiculous. You know what?
You're absolutely right, but it's hard to do that when the leadership is fighting against you.
I understand that. So leadership's got to freaking go. That's why it's on all. We were talking about this earlier today. It's like Roger was saying, I'm, violating privacy laws here, but he was saying, you know what? I'd run for office, and I'd probably win if he was local, and I have no doubt he would. He's a smart guy. He's well spoken for an Asian. That was fun. He's well spoken. You're smart enough to put together, some not powerful people, but good people around you. But what did you say? Yeah, you can make that motion all the time, all you want. But what did you say? The money's not there. It's just not. And that's true. You've got to be like a partner at a law firm who continues to get, whatever residuals from your contract that you signed, 4 years ago to run for that kind of office. So you have a second income. It's just normal folks like us is very difficult to get involved. In the electoral process. School board's easy, right? It doesn't require too much of your time. But if you want to be a representative of of the people you live around, that's tough, man. You almost got to be rich to begin with. So I don't know. It's kind of an aside, but so last night we were like, we've been talking. Should we get verified just for kicks? Verified on Twitter? Should we pay the $8 a month to get verified? I'm like, I don't know. Roger and I are like, Josh too. We're like, I don't know. Let's see how this shakes out, right? So last night I was texting Josh, and I was using the emojis like the little millennials and Gen Zers, and I was like, we don't need no. And I put the little emoji for blue, it's a blue circle and then a black check mark. It's like, we don't need no blue check, right? I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's try to put that in our name, just that the blue emoji and the check. And Twitter's way ahead of that one. They won't let you do that. So that's kind of funny. What I'm seeing though, Roger, on Twitter, and I know you're on there. You creep around. You're a troll. You're a Twitter troll. Like, you don't troll people. You troll through and just watch. You're a watcher. You're like a
they
little
call them
TV
voyeurs.
Tom. Yes, you're a voyeur. Although you do like some stuff sometimes. What I'm seeing is, from some people I actually respect who are verified, like Brett Weinstein, for instance. Like, he's a what is it? He's a biologist anyway. Really smart dude. But everyone who was verified is complaining right now about anyone being able to be verified. AOC and Musk had their little spat about it, and I think it's hilarious. I'd like to say that, I've been finding Twitter a lot of fun the past few days, and I don't know if that's my bias coming in, or if that's something that happened with, they pulled some of the algorithms. I'm seeing stuff I didn't see before. I hope it's not my bias where like, oh, Musk is good, so I like it better now. I hope it's not that, but I have been enjoying it the last few days. What I've been particularly enjoying is these people who were verified complaining about people like Culper's Canteen Cup being able to pay to be verified. And I think I made a comment on, I think it's Brett Weinstein's post, where he was complaining. It's like, well, just anybody can do it now. I mean, what credibility do they have? It's like, we reach a few people. We reach about 3 people who listen to us, and they give us feedback, and we talk about stuff they want us to talk about on this show. Does that make us any less like credible than somebody who reaches more people, or happens to be a journalist who happened to get a job at MSNBC and they suck and they're stupid? I mean, it's like, so what, man? We're spreading the wealth. You people like communism, and it's not necessarily communism, but it's like, let's make everybody equal, And God forbid
Equity.
Equity, that's right. God forbid that somebody gets on there and says that they're George W. Bush and, says a bunch of crazy things, and they're verified because they paid $8. God forbid that I see that and I'm like, is that really George W. Bush? And I have to make a couple of clicks to check on my own and make a discerning judgment that ain't George W. Bush. It's like, I don't know. I kind of like it, Roger. What are your thoughts? I think now that not being verified is going to be the thing that cool kids do.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's kind of like I don't have a whole lot of tattoos. I only have one, and it became cool to get whole sleeves done and this and that. And now, I go to the gym. Well, back when I used to go to the gym, it was I'm the only dude without the tattoos. So I'm the cool kid. But in all fairness, Josh spends a lot of time. He spends more time on Twitter than what I do, and probably what you do. So he probably sees more value in it. And I agree with you, man. I mean, you have the verification process there. It's I remember before with the blue check mark when they first came out, it was like you have to have like significant influence, type thing. and it's like, well, what does that mean? What does significant influence mean? And of course, I mean off duty hours. When you're up pretty late doing a lot of tweets and all that stuff. So, and on occasion, I do troll when I get on there, and I like and comment and retweet. And I did say you're during after hours. Yeah, it's like late 8, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. He's on all over Twitter, as our social medias are.
Oh, that's enough.
But it might be worth it. And you know what? I don't. It's funny because that's the same argument that I actually use with my son, that your sphere of influence is a lot greater than what you think it is. And it was funny because somebody was bagging on one of our accounts, and he had like 500,000 followers, and he made a comment and was like, "Ha ha ha, loser, you and your 112 followers," or whatever it was. He had 3 likes. So it's like you have 500,000 followers and you had 3 people like your comment. Okay. Out of our 100 followers, we'll have 3 likes. I mean, we'll have at least 3 because of us 3, but we'll probably have 3 in addition to what we have. So your sphere of influence is a lot greater than what it is, because I like to believe that the folks that follow us, the folks that are engaged with us, one, we have dialogue back and forth, but they also take that message out, right? They're taking it out to their spouses, their significant others, their kids. And that's what I tell my son. It's not that you necessarily have the audience of 100,000 people, but it's the fact that you and your 5 friends, you convince them, you influence them, they're going to take that home and influence their friends. They're going to influence, their significant others. So I think our sphere of influence is a lot greater. And I hate the number thing anyway. I mean, now you're talking about with Twitter, the verification that I guess some of these folks back in the day were like paying $20,000. Like, dude, we are in the wrong business. We need to start like the C3, whatever it is that we're going to call it. I'll give you all the F and blue check marks that you want for $20,000. I mean, it's crazy, and it's actually a great transition, because what happens is you get these people like Luke was talking about, these experts that go into MSNBC, and we mentioned a little bit of this. It is amazing to me. So I drove back home from Savannah, Georgia. We did it in 4 days back to Phoenix. And there was obviously a lot of news. Thank God for Sirius XM, because today's music just sucks. And I can imagine hearing that loop over and over again. So I did some flipping, man. I went through CNN, MSNBC, a lot of Fox News. And what kills me with these folks, how can you be a multi-million-dollar business, and especially during the election coverage, have no local expertise? It kills me. These people know. I would almost say, and maybe that, Josh, our social medias are, put this in your notes. We need to do this for next time, because we actually need to reach out to our listeners. Because here's the deal. Like, when I hear what Fox News is talking about, when I hear what Fox News is talking about Arizona, and they send Alicia Cunez out here or whatever, and they're like, oh, she's got a Hispanic last name, we'll send her to Arizona. She'll fit right in. She knows nothing about Arizona politics. And I don't know where she's from. But I'm telling you, listening to her, she knows nothing about the nuances of Maricopa County and Arizona politics. And then she reports that back to the Fox News folks, and that goes out nationwide, and that becomes the narrative. It's like, no, that's not the case. Has anybody even heard that Blake Masters actually has a chance to win the Senate seat? They are automatically jumping on Georgia. And it's like, dude, there are 600,000 votes and he's down by 95,000. Now, it's a lot worse position than Kari Lake, who's down by 12 or 13,000 or whatever it is, 14,000 now. It's much easier for her to make up, but he is well within striking distance to win this thing. You don't hear any of that because they don't know the layout of Maricopa County and of Arizona politics. So it makes me wonder, Josh, when you look at like the zucchini that got elected out in Pennsylvania with Fetterman, I'd be curious to know, hey, what do the locals think out there? What's the energy out there? Do you drive down the street and you see every other house has a Fetterman sign and nothing on Oz? Those local things. So I think maybe in the future, in my opinion, it'd be nice to, especially with our listeners, we'd cover at least 3 states. Hey, what's on the ground out there? Like, what's the energy out there? What's the vibe out there? Because I'm telling you, our local listeners, when we look at other races, especially with Pennsylvania, New York, those places. I mean, we've obviously got a good line on Texas. We got a great line. At the very beginning, Luke was like, yeah, Beto, no way. Because he knows what's going on out there. He knows the nuances. He knows the lay of the land. Josh has got pretty good tie-in with North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and then obviously me out here with Arizona. And we provide a lot more insight, I think more accurate insight than a lot of these national news networks. So I don't know. Maybe it's worth something, Josh, that we tie in some of our local listeners out there, kind of like Cajun Conservative. We've talked to him about it. Hey, what are the local politics out there, and what's the local vibe? What's the energy like out there? Because I think the media just misses that.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, and I mean, yeah, man, why didn't we think of that before? Let's engage our listeners. That's brilliant. Water is wet. Thank you for that revelation. Rogers, the Hanna-Barbera sound, laugh track. Yeah, no, I think we do. I think we do try and keep a good pulse, on what's going on, and we do need to to engage those folks more. And so I'll say Ryan, up in Northern Virginia, he's constantly pushing us stuff, from his local, what the local school board is doing, and the what the people at the coffee shop are talking about, what they're saying, right? Because he's there every day, he lives there, and he understands, this is what people care about, this is what gets people, this is what gets them going, and this is what they're not going to tolerate, especially when you're talking about Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, Prince William, Loudoun County. Everybody remembers the school board nonsense in Loudoun County. It is imperative, and you know we do need to engage our listeners more. And maybe one day when C3 is as big as Joe Rogan, we won't have to worry about engaging our listener. We can engage our listeners, and then we can go get on the ground with them, and we can travel the states as these things are happening. We can be there on the ground, and Luke won't have to go visit the Chaz a year after the fact. Like, he can be there as it's happening, to get that breaking reporting. Because there are some days, man, and obviously life kind of prohibits it, but I would love nothing more than to go spend a couple weeks on the border, with Bill Magellan, from Fox. It really, like, okay, this is what's
Bill
this
who?
is what happened.
Bill who?
You know what, dude? I can't pronounce his last name. You know what? You kiss my ass. You can kiss my ass. You caught me, though.
It's your Achilles heel. It's your Achilles heel.
We should actually send you. We should actually send you over the border, strap a GoPro to you, take all your credentials, and actually live stream you coming back into America to see how easy it is.
Dude, we might be onto something there, and we could live it. We could live stream it over, StreamYard on Facebook or something like that. That was really good. With the Cajun Conservative, the live stream. I think we need to do more of those. Especially as things are happening and stuff.
Well,
and
you remember back in the day, back when Facebook was cool, when we would get on the debates, and I think all three of us did it. Well, at least we all three participated. And we would start a message thread on Facebook during the debates, and that was a lot of fun. And I don't know. I think our audience might get with that a little bit.
Well, one of us got banned.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh, shoot. So, dang it. Who got banned?
Well, it wasn't me, and it wasn't you.
The social medias are. Yeah, so that's kind of new. I haven't. I don't think we've recorded since the official word came through. So the official, my appeal came back from the Book of Faces, and it was denied. So for you folks out there, I did not unfriend you. Facebook permanently deleted my my Facebook account.
What was the final straw? I don't remember what it was. A meme, right? It was a Hunter Biden.
So it was a meme, yeah, and it was the picture of Hunter Biden in the bathtub with the crack pipe, and above it was like, "Man, I hope gas prices don't get too high." And then it's Hunter Biden with a crack pipe, and it says, "Gas prices." So that was the wording on that, and I'm paraphrasing here, was I posted a sexually explicit photo without consent. That was their
really?
Yeah.
It was just him in the bathtub, right?
It was just him in a bathtub, and all you dude, you can only see him from like the chest up,
Wow.
right? But
So,
that was their
but you
determination.
you had a lot of warnings previous to that, right? I
Look,
mean,
look, man, I'm not gonna say that it was my first time for sure, right? I mean, I was by that point, like I was old hat, like I had the teardrop tattoo, the spider web on my elbow, like, yeah, man, I was seasoned. I was like a good
so
cast iron skillet.
and Facebook's kind of in the toilet right now because Zuckerberg, with his freaking moronic plan for Meta, it was not ready. Maybe
No,
5 years from now, it would be ready. But I think what he was thinking was, well, look how the remote learning went during COVID. That's probably going to happen again. Let's dive into this head first, and it really came back and bit him. But okay, so with Facebook, business decision to ban Josh. Um, in my mind, Roger, they're banning Josh. So that's the business decision is by banning him, we are he's basically toxic, right? This is the business decision. He's toxic, so he's driving people away from the platform. So we're making a business decision to get rid of one potential consumer, or not consumer, but one moneymaker. Uh, because if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, right? So they're making money off Josh, but not enough to counteract how many people he's driving away from the platform, right? That would be their business decision, right? So the question to you is, do you think that that's actually part of the decision, or do you think it's ideological, whatever based? Do you think it's a business decision or not? Is what I'm asking.
No, it's ideological. It's exactly what's going on with Twitter right now, right? Different platform, but it's the same thing. Somebody's not one. We have an insider threat, and being CI folks, we need to figure out who that is because not only have we had YouTube episodes
Damn
banned,
straight.
but now he's getting banned. So it's we
Yep.
clearly have an insider threat. So Luke, I need you to get on that. But that's the problem: is these folks that work at these places, they're not doing their job. And here's my biggest issue with all of this. You want to give me warnings, whatever, that's fine. Give me the chance to rebut and state my case, not click a button saying, I disagree with you. I disagree with you, and here's why. Because that 24-year-old schlub on the other end that lives in downtown San Francisco that takes a crap on the street corner to fit in with the homeless, like we don't see things the same. And you know what? Maybe I'm just a little bit privy to some information that she doesn't have. I should be able to state my case, and then, hey, if you want to take that and then shoot back, nope, you're wrong because of A, B, C, and D. Rock and roll, man. But that's not it. And they won't do that because, like you said, it's ideological. It's the, well, no, I mean, it's no different than the fact checks. Half the fact checks are wrong. They send the fact checks and I'm like, no, that's actually wrong. And then they start quoting like their parent company because my parent company, Gannett, put out this article. Dude, you're one and the same. You're quoting each other to fact check stuff that's not correct. And they know that. They know that. That's what they fall back on because they can't just say, well, you know what? Because you got to remember, those who preach tolerance are usually the most intolerant, right? It's you're an extremist if you don't agree with my ideas. And that's what it is. He'll never get a great explanation. You'll never have the chance to go back and forth and say, this is where I was coming from. This is my thought process. Here's the data. Here's the facts backing this up. It's no different than our episode that got banned. That I might want to repost again. Of course, I'm scared because now I'm like, hey, if you repost it, they're going to kick us off the platform. But I listened through that thing again with my wife, and I was like, okay, let me find out what was going on. And there was a couple comments that we made on COVID, and it was a couple. You had actually asked several questions, like they weren't facts. You were asking questions, like, what if this da 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 da? And I forget exactly what it is. I have to go back and check the game tape. I'm like, that's what we got banned for? Like, you didn't even state it. But it's no different than what's going on or what happened with the elections in Brazil. Josh, what did YouTube do? Hey, if you question the election integrity of Brazil, we're going to ban you.
Yep. Which was, which was nuts because obviously, in Brazil, I did not want Lula to win because Lula is a communist. And but at the end of the day, like I don't know how Brazil's elections are done. I don't know how they're handled. I don't know the process. I don't know. And honestly, I hate to say it's not that I don't care, but it was just okay. That's very very low on my my things I need to read up on list. Anyway, And so, but when you start seeing some of the reports coming out, and you're like, oh, well, are there shenanigans? Ah, not whatever. But as soon as I saw YouTube was like, we are censoring, basically, we will remove content that questions the integrity of Brazil's elections, I was like, oh, there was shenanigans. The simple fact that YouTube came out and did that automatically told me that it was not on the up and up. That's all I needed to see. Right. And that's why people don't trust the system. They don't trust institutions because of that right there, because Facebook decided, they were like, okay, well, you got to go because you shared a meme that, probably 20, 30, 40, 50,000 other people did too. Right. And, at the end of the day, whatever. I was able to download all my info. They give you the option. You can download all your information, so you don't lose photo, all that stuff. And you know what? I mean, I hope Zuckerberg.
That's actually nice of them. I mean, that's
right.
thoughtful.
I mean, yeah, it's nice. It's like it's like giving you a Pepsi on the way out the door after they rape you. Yeah, it's really nice of them.
Wow.
It's like paying for your Uber.
But you know what? That's why they do. That's why YouTube does the closed captioning. Why do you think even the platform that we use, I don't want to get kicked off of it, but why do you think they do free transcripts? Because they run it through their algorithms. Because what's going to happen is we mentioned Brazil and elections. That's going to pop a flag, and it's not going to be the cover art. It's not going to be the picture. Nobody's sitting there listening. They're going to like, hey, he said Brazil and elections, and now you're automatically flagged.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so for those out there, again, I didn't unfriend you. My account just got deleted.
Some of you he did.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. To be fair, but anyway, if you guys, anybody out there listening, if you haven't already, if you receive a friend request from a popular character from Parks and Recreation, go ahead, just go ahead and accept it. It's in your best interest to go ahead and accept it. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's whatever. Like you said, Facebook is a dying platform. I truly believe that. I do have a lot more fun on Twitter, for sure. And I think we get more engagement on there. But going back to the live stream, I think we absolutely do the live stream. When events present themselves to do that, because like Luke, those threads that we did for like the debates and stuff, dude. I mean, those things were 300 and 400 comments, and a lot of people jumped in on them. It was a lot of fun, and I think a live stream, especially even if we can, get some extra people in the live stream, and people can jump on and chat with us back and forth. I think it'll be good because Luke, and you brought it up. The live stream it just felt a lot more genuine, than a non-live diatribe. It was good. It was good for sure.
I'm tweeting at our least favorite hater. Democracy is on the ballot. The fifth horseman. This guy's a piece of work.
Guy's an idiot.
He's I encourage the Canteen Army, hop on Twitter, man, help us out. Damon and Grant can't, and Scott
and Ryan
yes, they can't carry all the weight. Darren, I'm looking at you. I know you're on Twitter. You're like the Roger of Twitter. You're trolling, you voyeur, you looking in my window, you peeping Tom. Man, just grab your sack and jump on these people, man. Hey. We're using our bully pulpit. This guy is a freaking piece of work. This is the kind of guy, he's basically saying that we can't change our mind on Trump because we supported him once. We're Trump forever. And I'm like, oh, so we can't, observe new information and change our mind? Sounds kind of fascist-y to me. It's like this guy is a freaking bigot. He's the kind of person. You want to know who votes for Fetterman? Guys like this guy. It doesn't matter who it is. And my wife and I had a long talk about that today, or last night, actually. It's like, if our candidate, and we talked about this early in the show, if our candidate's like, we can't vote for this person. I can't have this person representing me. They are not all there. This is the kind of guy who votes for him no matter what, because it's more important that he doesn't lose than to have a competent person representing him. This guy is a freaking joke. Roger, do you know who I'm talking about?
No, but I'll look it up after the show. I'll look it
Yeah,
up
and
to show.
he took his Ukraine flag out of his bio. And oh no, it's still there. Okay. I was about to make a comment about that. Oh snap. Oh man, did you see how brave Sean Penn is? Oh my goodness.
Oh
He
Jesus.
he went over and he gave Zelensky one of his Oscars, and said, I'll take this back
He's gonna melt that
you
into a
win the
mortar
war."
round.
No. Zelensky, he's gonna put that on his mantle, dude. Zelensky just loves this. He loves it so much. But I was so impressed. You guys see the picture of Sean Penn shaking Zelensky's hand? Dude, Sean Penn's got to be like 60 something years old. Dude's jacked, bro.
I was about to say he's been slinging some weight.
Dude, he's got veins coming out of the side of his bicep. I'm like, hey, I'll give Sean Penn a couple of things. I'll give him this. He's a good actor. He's a great actor. And dude is jacked. I'll give him those two things, man. Good on you,
Yeah.
Sean Penn, but very brave, though. Brave, very brave. Roger, would you go to Ukraine right now to shake Zelensky's hand? Just to shake his hand?
No. There's a lot of places I would not go, just in general. But I want to throw one last thing out to you guys. If you've heard, well, two things. One, it's funny because remember where we were a couple years ago with the whole Twitter thing, and we had to find a new platform, and as individuals, and we hopped on Mastodon, and we did Gab, and we did MeWe. What's funny is liberals are going through that right now, and they're going back to the same crappy platforms that we were on like 2-3 years ago. It's genius. I love it. Well, not genius, but it's funny. It's funny how it all comes full circle. So I'll throw this at Josh. Biden basically came out and insinuated that Elon Musk might be a national security threat and that he should probably be looked into. And Jake Sullivan came out and reiterated that and said that, yeah, he might be something. He basically said Biden said what he said, and he might need to be looked into. So I want to get your thoughts on that. But my immediate response, if I was Elon Musk, I would say, okay, that's great. You should go ahead and look into me. And by the way, I'm going to stop sending your Space Force satellites up into space because he just did a launch like a week ago. And oh, by the way, go ahead and let NASA know that I'm going to go ahead and stop carrying their payload up there as well. And you might as well go ahead and let the International Space Station know that I'm not carrying any of their payload up to them as well, because I think he does quite a bit of work with the government. It seems to me it's like if you're crapping on a guy, and I'm not saying he isn't whatever, but just the reasons that they're like, well, the Saudis are the second largest shareholders of Twitter behind Elon Musk, whatever. I don't know that's a threat to national security, but it's like you're threatening a guy that is doing a lot of good work and probably more than we'll ever know for the U.S. government. Now, I don't know Elon from anybody else and have just no personal relationship or knowledge, obviously, other than what I see. But what I've seen him do with SpaceX and what he's done, even in support of the Ukraine war with the satellites, I mean, these are the same people that, he sends over his Starlink, costs him and the shareholders $20 million a month. And he asked the Pentagon that, hey, man, can you guys start footing this bill? And the Pentagon, and then everybody jumps all over Elon, right? So, like, Josh, do you think he's a national security threat, and what do you think his response should be?
Do I think he's a national security threat? Not from what I see, right? I mean, I don't think the dude's a national security threat. He's the richest man on the planet. Is he going to have foreign connections? Absolutely, right? Is he going to go around and court various investors for his businesses? Absolutely. Like, I mean, you'd be crazy if you didn't. What's up, Luke?
So just, the richest man on the planet, right, could be a security threat. That doesn't mean they are a security threat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, richest man on the planet. It's crazy how Elon Musk went from the, liberal's dream, I can't wait to buy a Tesla, to a Bond villain overnight. It's funny.
Yeah.
So multiple choice question. Who is a greater security threat? Elon Musk, Eric Swalwell, Dianne Feinstein.
Feinstein.
I'd say Swalwell.
Yeah. So finishing up the Elon thing. Okay. His response, I think his response should be exactly what you said. But that's not the biggest. But that's really not the biggest issue here, right? The biggest issue is that the president of the United States came out and said that a private citizen may be a national security threat. It should be they should take a look at. Okay, that's I mean that's the issue, not the fact that Elon is could be a national security threat, right? When the president can just come out and unilaterally be like, well, I think that person is a national security threat, right, at a press conference, and be like, we could use the full weight of the federal government to take a look at them. Man, that doesn't sit right with me. And if we had an ACLU that was worth a shit, they would be all over that. But in that same vein, why not? Why wouldn't? Why would Joe Biden hesitate to say that? Right? Because what's going to happen? Nobody's going to do anything. Hell, Michiganders just put Whitmer back in office after she locked them down from buying seeds, during COVID, from buying, from buying, they couldn't even buy a jacket, right? While she was jetting around on her boat and her husband was going off on a boat doing things, you couldn't go to Gam Gam's funeral. One of our listeners, his dad, he's from Michigan. His dad passed away during COVID. He couldn't even go to his dad's funeral, right? He couldn't even go to his dad's funeral because of feckless tyrants like Whitmer. But what do people do? They put him right back into office.
So, Josh,
so why not?
So, Josh, did you see that video that was circulating around about COVID and how the politicians, effed us, where some dude recorded his grandmother? He was having a Zoom or Skype call with her or whatever. His mother, actually, is an older woman, obviously in a nursing home. She died like a month later of COVID. Did you see that video?
No.
Oh my God. So okay, it was heartbreaking. I'm going to kick it right back to you. It was heartbreaking. She obviously had Alzheimer's or something. She didn't know what was going on. Somebody just put a screen in front of her. She was confused. She was trying to reach into the screen. She was showing pictures of her with them. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And that's one of the things I'm a little mystified about this last election, specifically with Whitmer and some of these other people. It's like, what these people did to us is still in recent memory. And here we are. I mean, I think Florida got it, but not Michigan.
Because, and again, and you guys have heard me say it, because the majority of Americans are peas. The majority of Americans are okay with living under the jackboot. That's just reality. Right? So Biden, there's no reason for Biden to be scared or be worried about or hesitate to come out and say things like, "Oh, I think so and so's a national security threat, and maybe we want to take a look at him." There's no reason for him to be scared. The people just told him there's no reason for him to be scared because they voted some of these people back into office, which is absolutely insane to me. The people in Michigan, guess what? You deserve every single thing you get from here on out. Pennsylvania, you deserve every single thing you get from here on out. Everything. Don't want to hear it. New York, don't want to hear you cry about crime. Nope. You put hope.
Yeah, Josh, this is one thing we go back and forth on. There were a lot of there were some New York State Senate seats that were flipped, and people got out to the polls and voted for that. So this is where Josh and I disagree. I'm not willing to throw every New York citizen under the bus for a few people, or not a few people, a ton of people living in the 5 boroughs in New York City. I'm not going to say you deserve everything you get. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do it because there are people there that vote. And New York flipped a lot, bro. New York flipped a lot with the state Senate. Uh-oh. Okay, so I'm not, Roger, you're not done. We got 8 minutes.
Here's the thing with that, though.
Dude, come on, bro.
Did you see how many people?
Really? You're going to go down this road and throw somebody under the bus who went out of their way. They might have even flipped from Dem to Republican and say, no, You get what you deserve. You went into the city to go to a wedding. You got
I think it's
raped.
a
You
generality.
deserve it.
It's a
That's a
generality. I think
generality.
I don't know.
when
People need to
Here's the thing.
understand that.
Here's the thing. 41,000 people left New York. Guess what? Those people.
Not everybody can do that, man. Okay, Tim.
They can
Pool.
pack up and they
okay,
can
Tim
pack
Pool.
up and move too.
Okay, Tim Pool. Some people aren't in that situation. We are three comfortable dudes who conceivably could do something like that. I don't buy into it, Josh. I don't. I'm not going to buy into that. No, you deserve it. Even though you went to the poll and you flipped New York State Senate seats because we're in a transition period. No, you deserve it because you can't afford to move. You deserve it. No,
If people can walk for a week across if people can walk for a week across the desert and swim across a river to get here, you can fucking pick up your stuff and you can move out of New York State.
This transitions very nicely into a point. I wrote it down here in my notebook. The majority of Americans are peas. Yeah, I agree with you. They're happy to live with that jackboot on their throat. But let me tell you something, man. The jackboot that's around your throat and my throat and Roger's throat is fur-lined. Because that jackboot, that fur-lined jackboot that feels really good because you're sitting there in your air conditioning, as am I. I'm having my cold beer here with my 3 refrigerators in my house. Joe Sixpack's going to give up every right because that jackboot is fur-lined. So you can talk all the yang you want about, oh, they deserve it and all that stuff. But, bro, as long as you're comfortable, you're going to give up every right you have, as will I, as will Roger. You can deny it all you want. I have 1, 2. Yeah, I have 3 refrigerators.
You have 3 refrigerators?
Hey, he's got 3 refrigerators. He's got 3 refrigerators in this house. How many do you have in the other house?
I got 4 refrigerators, bro. No, so I got to spice it up a little bit. Josh and I
so
always
when you're talking about comfort, let's.
I just said the 3 of us.
Well, you should be more specific because I don't have 4 refrigerators in 2 houses.
Oh, you should see Roger's refrigerator.
But I think
I can fit all 4 of my refrigerators inside Roger's one. I think
the point is,
let's get it.
Roger's got a walk-in cooler.
A lot of this stuff is like when I say it, it's more the generalities of, hey, there were tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of votes that voted to continue that way, and those are the people. I mean, hey, man, you get everything you deserve. But look, obviously, if Arizona goes blue, which it could, right? Kerry Lake could lose, Blake Masters could lose. I mean, but the other argument you can make is it goes back to what we opened up with. Well, how much should I do to influence that election? And look, not enough, clearly.
A lot of that stuff I was saying to Josh was not necessarily tongue in cheek, but that was kind of a peek behind the curtain to how our texts go. A lot of times we get along real well.
You know what? If we could like live text, we'd probably get way more followers than we have on this show.
It gets spicy, folks. So real quick, Josh, one thing that really got me with the Biden speech where, he's talking about Elon Musk and how they should look into him and everything. The reporter came, God, I could go off on this for another few minutes, but a reporter came back, you hear him in the background, and he said, "How are you going to do that?" And Joe Biden smirked and goes, "We have a number of ways." And it's like, that sent a shiver down my spine. It's like, and the reporter got on Twitter and it's like, ha ha ha, I bet Elon crapped his pants when he heard Joe Biden say that. And it's like, okay, cheerleader, what was the purpose of your question? I thought you were actually being a journalist. How are you going to go after a private citizen who paid to acquire this with partners and say, we're going to come after you and I'm not going to tell you how? Which is a nice transition. Roger, I'm going to have you close it out. So there's a really great article that Josh and I and Roger always talk about. We're talking about the FBI should not have intelligence and counterintelligence authorities. They should have criminal, and that's it. And, I know counterintelligence at a point with espionage becomes criminal, but I think that's a recipe for a violation of civil rights. There's a great article on Substack by Matt Taibbi, FBI's transformation from national police to domestic spy agency. Is part 1 of 4. But that one's free. So head to Substack, check out Matt Taibbi. I scanned through it. I want to read the whole thing tonight, but it's really good. It kind of echoes what the 3 of us have been saying, that you combine counterintelligence and criminal into the same thing. Bro, Diego, hey, thanks for listening. I explained all this to Diego yesterday or the day before about how that's a bad idea. And he's like, holy shit, never thought about it that way. And it's like, yeah, man, most people don't. Using those counterintelligence authorities where you get to, you have the exceptions to violate human right or civil rights, that is. And in the course of doing that investigation, you find 20 different possible criminal violations. I mean, in my book, that's dirty. But anyway, and then whatever. And they're not convicted of the counterintelligence. They're not convicted of espionage, but they are of all the criminal stuff. I think that's bullshit. Anyway, so Raja, have you?
That was the search warrant, right? That was the Mar-a-Lago search warrant.
Yes, that's exactly.
The FBI can go in there
exactly
on a counterintelligence pretext, say, hey, we're looking for this. But oh, by the way, during that search, anything they find that's not even related to that, which believe me, like Lucas said a million times, infinite resources, you did something wrong. That's the whole point of it, right?
Show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
That's right. Was it
Jesus.
Stalin? Or no, it was Beria that said that, right?
I think so.
Yeah. It's all love for Josh. Y'all thought we were going back and forth and getting mad. We weren't. That's just our text. That's just our text thread. So, hey, shout out.
I'm going to MF Luke because I'm going to MF Luke in the text as soon as we're done.
Hey, if I forgot anybody with the shout out, as we always do, I apologize. We appreciate all y'all listening. Hopefully, maybe we got some Cajun conservative listeners in here, and y'all, I encourage that our regular audience go listen to him. He's a hoot, man. He's great.
No, don't do that. Well, you can listen to him. Don't go see him
first.
His production is like way better than ours. Like
okay, don't see him. Just listen.
They might not actually come back because he's got like professional stuff going on.
So yeah, he's a lot of fun. Appreciate y'all listening, and hit us up on freaking Twitter and YouTube. Watch some YouTube, damn it.
Hey, by the way, Maricopa County just announced that there are 600,000 plus votes outstanding, with an estimated 450,000 being day of voting. So the voting that they've released so far, the numbers are early voting mail-in. So we haven't even gotten through all that yet. So we're still waiting we haven't even touched the day of voting yet, which I think is going to break to the right. It would be my thought process of that. So my assumption is by the time we drop this episode and it comes out, hopefully, I don't know, in the next couple of days, Maricopa County will still be counting. I just pray that they are done counting by the time our next episode comes out after this here in the next week or so. But thanks to everybody out there for listening. My daughter listens every now and then still. She's out there in PA school kicking ass. I know her boyfriend listens. And it's funny because he actually starts texting me. He's like, man, this is all BS. And, it's like, calm down a little bit. He's fired up. But it's good to see young folks like that are engaged. And he does a good job of trying to educate himself. Like, I'm not convincing him of anything. It's hey, man, here's the facts. Here's my beliefs. Here's my perspective. And he goes out and he does some of his own due diligence. I think one of my wife's coworkers, she just started listening to us as well the other day. She might have been drunk because she texted a picture like, oh, look at what I'm watching. I'm like, getting ready to get educated, huh? But it was like 11:30 at night. So she was probably hammered, had nothing else to watch. Netflix was out or something like that. And flipped on the Culper's Canteen Cup. But thanks to everybody out there that keeps hanging with us. Joe, Dan's out there, a bunch of folks that we don't necessarily give credit to, but we interact with a lot of them throughout the day, whether it's text, comments. It was actually pretty good. I was able to hop on the Cajun Conservative with you guys for a few minutes, and it was kind of nice to see some of the cross-pollination with some of the C3 listeners and viewers hop up there and throw out some comments. So they are just as engaged as we are, and I think some of our other listeners. But thanks to everybody out there. Check out Carlton Zeus. Hit up our website, www.culperscanteencup.com, and keep your canteen cups tightly secured and full of some good whiskey.